because they contain elements that are quite complex as well. And when you quantify them and look at them, they are so numerous in that you cannot deal with them just overnight. Now, I think the best that can be done is to isolate these issues one by one and deal with them as well one by one. Now, today in this program, what we've done is that we have isolated one very, very pertinent and very, very important issue, and that is the issue that has got something to do with the judicial system in the country. We are asking a question, a very pertinent question, that has the judicial system in the country become a deterrent or a catalyst to mindset change initiative? This is the question that is going to be discussed in this program today, and I am privileged to have two distinguished personalities from the academia. And in fact, it's quite a privilege indeed, because I've managed to fish the Dean of the Faculty of Law himself, and that's Dr. Sundu Zwayo Madise. Sundu, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
I hope you will allow me to call you by your first name.
Everyone does that.
He does that. Everybody does that.
Everyone.
Thanks very much for actually giving me that kind of a leeway. And I said that I've actually managed to fish two distinguished personalities from the academia, that's Chancellor College. And I have, again, the head of Department of Legal Studies. Practical Studies. Yes, that's right. You know, a little bit. He will explain what it is all about in the course of the program. But he's the head of department in the Department of Law there, which the Dr. Sundu Zwayo Madise actually heads. Not so.
Yeah, I'm the dean.
He's the dean, and you're the head.
He's actually my head.
So
he's my boss in my department.
Okay.
I'm his boss as dean.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
sure. So, welcome, gentlemen, to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To set the ball rolling, Sundu, I will definitely throw this question, which forms the theme and the basis for this discussion here. So they should set the tone for all of us, me and Bright, to actually roll along with you. The theme is, has the judicial system become a deterrent or a catalyst to the mindset initiative? What's your take?
Wellington, I'll say that both. I'll say that both because of things that have happened that are positive, but things that have happened that are also of concern. So it may be seen as a deterrent in the fact that, for example, there are things that sometimes happen that sometimes need to be a little bit more transparent. So people have raised issues. For example, how are judicial officers appointed in Malawi? Is there a process where people can actually pinpoint and say, or is it shrouded in some source of some form of secrecy? I think it is important that Malawians should know exactly how this is done, because that has a bearing on how the judicial system actually works. The other thing is that it's been a normal cry now that justice takes too long in Malawi.
Yes, so delayed.
It takes too long. And in law, we always say justice delayed is justice denied. And yet we continue denying Malawians justice. Now, it's not just the judiciary that is at fault here. We as lawyers are at fault sometimes. The state, sometimes when it's prosecuting people, is also at fault. But I am always of the view that if a judicial officer wants a thing to be done, it will be done. If a judicial officer gives you certain timelines or deadlines, it will be done. So I think that is a major problem. In fact, if you think about it, if you don't have proper justice being dispensed in good time, people resort to mob justice.
Exactly.
If they catch a suspect who they think has stolen, they'll say, I think we'll turn an eye back.
Yeah, because we cannot take him.
We'll take him to court, it's going to take forever.
Yes.
So we need to have a system where sometimes, indeed, our constitution says we must give people fair trial, but I think we must not use that as a guise of dragging things. There are certain cases that one can say they're straightforward. Of course, in law, nothing is always straightforward. We always say that. But still, reasonably, you can say that these are straightforward. So in my view, that as an envelope is the one that is essentially delaying things. And the reality is, no matter what we do, if we don't change that mindset, if we as lawyers, the state as prosecutors, the judiciary, if we all move in this sense that, oh, the law will take its time. It reminds me of Muntu Hagamalira. Matia, you failed the program. Easy in the Sayoka. Somebody has to lead it. So I think I've seen that quite a lot in the judicial system at all levels. But I would also say that, yeah, it has been a catalyst in a way because of the fact that the judiciary has now opened up certain doors or windows. So, for example, calling top government officials to account through a process called judicial review, where they're called to account. Of course, you need other arms of government to help them, as well as other players. So, for example, the Ombudsman has been very vocal. But the fact that you challenge them, the judiciary will call people to come and account. The judiciary now seems to be much more forthright. It's no longer playing itself, if I can use that word. I mean, the last election, the election case is a good example.
Yes, good example. Yeah.
You know, the judiciary could easily have made a determination, which some people thought was going to happen, that, oh yeah, there were irregularities, but they were not of such a nature or magnitude that would warrant nullification. I think the fact that they did, and they did it in the manner that they did, I think shows that the judiciary was also sending a message that, yeah, yes, we can. And I think even when it went to the Supreme Court, you could see the Supreme Court actually tightened up the notes and says, no, there were a few other issues. We want to make it clear, for example, that by the 151st day, we must have a president sworn in. So I think in doing that, the judiciary did lead the process. So there was a catalyst of change. But I think that's what I'm saying, it is a measure, it's a balanced affair. It will depend on how you look at it, whether you think it is weighing more towards being deterrent or weighing more towards being a catalyst. But let me stop there for now.
Weighing more of being a deterrent, and I just want to to dwell on that, because I'm looking at the backlog of cases, you know, at the end, because they take too long in the courts, they frustrate the citizenry. What can be done really to make sure that these are speeded up? Because, as you've already said, people resort to mob justice.
Yeah, I think the delays is not just frustrating the citizenry. I'll tell you, I teach law, but I also practice, and so does my colleague, Bright here.
In fact, I'll come to him because maybe you're not producing enough.
but well,
you're to blame. You're to blame, right?
I'll tell you the truth. That I have cases that were filed in 2010.
Yes.
2009, 2008. They're not concluded yet. What do you tell your client? Some of our clients have died. For some of them, the matters have moved on. Now, it's not acceptable. I think this one we should be outright. It's not acceptable. It's something that we need to have an open discussion about it. I think the judiciary is aware of these problems. I think they need to do a little bit more. So far, we have seen that efforts have been made, but I think the efforts don't seem to be bearing fruits. The numbers of cases, outstanding cases, still continues. I'm saying that because Malawians are now becoming more knowledgeable about their rights. So the list of litigation or cases that are going for court is quite long. In the first 5 or 6 months, COVID was used as an excuse where you couldn't get things done. So it means the backlog is already there. I'm saying it was used as an excuse because people were still filing matters. So matters were still going to court. So I would say that I think we have no excuse for the backlog. I'm saying that because in the past we have always said, oh, number of judges. Indeed, it is true. But the truth is, even amongst some of the judges, some of the magistrates, some of them produce results. They deliver judgments. Others, they don't. So we now have 12 new judges being appointed. I think 4 have gone to the Supreme Court, so the net effect is we have 8. Let's see if we're going to have an improvement. I hope we will. Because if we don't, then Malawians will have a right to ask. To say, now, the problem was the judges. So but I think that is a big problem. And to me, that's a deterrent to the mindset agenda.
Exactly, quite a big deterrent. You are the head of the Department of Legal Studies. Has this got something to do with staffing, perhaps? what are you doing? What human resource are you releasing? Is it going straight into the mainstream absorption that is required for them to actually help deliver judicial deliverance in the country?
Well, so obviously, like my colleague said, when you look at these matters and you want to come to certain conclusions, what sort of stuff are we producing? Are they fit for purpose? Which then eventually reflects how the judiciary itself is performing.
Yes.
I have no hesitation to say we produce stuff that are fit for purpose. But obviously, in the molding of a professional, universities are not the final point of call.
Okay.
So eventually when someone gets into practice, there are certain things you expect them to develop further what they learned in university. So you may train someone with a certain work ethic, with a certain competences, but the environment in which they are going to work eventually is going to define what sort of professional ultimately they become to the industry.
Exactly.
So as for Chancellor College, I like I said, I don't hesitate to say that we produce graduates that are fit for purpose, most of them until maybe next year, most of them straight from the university go straight into practice. They start going to court. They start sitting as magistrates and then they rise through the ranks to become judges later on when they qualify. They go all the way to the Supreme Court, and it's been like that for quite some time. But then once they get into the system, there are certain things they catch up. They take up along the way, which perhaps then of the proportion that the Dean talked about, there are certain individuals who deliver, others don't. The question over those that don't deliver is always what has happened along the way in their professional life, that they have become something other than what we expected them to be.
Yes.
And there are so many factors. One is bound to conduct what in the academy would call a multivariate assessment of what defines the final product that is in the industry in terms of performance. Why are they not writing judgments? Why are they delaying cases like from 2009? That's plainly ridiculous and unacceptable, obviously. So we would have to understand why those are the factors. What some of the reasons that Dean talked about is people have always said, oh, judiciary is understaffed. Yes, and we know we have to operate in an environment where resources are scarce. So we're never going to have a point in time where we say we have enough. Even with the 812 that we've added recently, which I think is the biggest number at the goal that has been added,
The judges, yes.
that will not be enough because on the other hand, as the Dean also said, the culture of litigation is also growing, especially after the elections case, which almost everyone was in the courtroom last year.
Yes.
People have now seen the possibilities of how they could take their cases to court and how the system works. So they probably are getting more interested in taking matters to court. Of course, as we always say, courts should always be a point of last, the last point of call.
That's right.
There are various other methods by which disputes must be resolved, and no one should be encouraged to be just rushing to court.
Good.
So yeah, that's what I would say.
Yep.
Yeah.
It sounds good.
And yeah, sure.
It sounds good.
Yeah.
Hai ndi kulanjeni amene mwapeza mpata nditu kuti lero mukhalenso pa program yathu iyi imene tikuiti paja mindset change muchizungu kuti kusintha kaganizidwa. Lero lino tafuna tilowe court. Ndipo polowa nkotimo tufa tonsefe timalakwirana m'midzimu, timalakwirana m'matauni pali zambiri zimene zimachitika, ndipo timathamangira ku koti kuti anthu athandize. Anthu amene amasula, anthu amene muthandiza ku koti ndatenga lero kuchokera ku Chancellor College. Tili ndi bambo Sondozwayo Madise amene ndithu na manda wake wa ndevu zake kumeneko ndevu zoyera mutatowa maona apa pa ndevu zoyera sayire komwe kuli ndevu zoyera
kwapi
sayire komwe
menika pepera ndi nyamata
ndikumbukira yayi akunena choncho ndithu ndevu sayira komweko ndiyeso ndi nyamata wawo munthu sulephera kuyenda ndi katholera ndithu amene amayang'ana kusula kwenikweniko amene ndithu akuti ndi woyang'anya is a head of legal studies kumeneko kuti ndithu ndamene amasula anthuwo. Ndiye lero lino ndifuna amene onawonso atizukute timve kuti kodi nkhani zimene zikuyenda bwanji. Ndiye ndikuyayamba amadisewa phiri ngani ndione kuti milandu imachedwa kwambiri. Ndithu kuti anthu onse amene ali papawa amva kuti amene masula anthu ndinu ndipo mwakhala zochitika zambiri zokuza zimenezi. Iyi kumachedwa chifukwa chani milandu?
Phiri tinene chonchi. Ikumachedwa ufa cha zifukwa zambiri. Kuma chifukwa chachikulu chenicheni chili ku khoti komweko.
Chabwino.
Kuma tinene chonchi. Fuka mlandu uja ndekeze munthu akabwera kwa ine ngati lawyer. Fuka kuphunzitsa kwa maphunzitso kumaso mkhoti kujeni makanjanja maundi
Oh, manjanja,
iya yosa kwa
manjanja,
ndimo ndo
Onde sango kuika ni kasi mokaya.
kuti yoda kuti amene amongozo mango mwa inki basi
Aye.
di blackboard iya ipera
Kama
mapita
pandito.
muntu jakabwera kwa ine ndekuti umumva nkhani yako icha
Ehe.
umumva bwino kwa muzuri kwa iyeyo ja masiko yamba kuyenda
Yes.
mina wabwera kwa iyeyo wayamba masiko yamba kuyenda ndezi mafunika kuti iweso ngatilowa upange machawi uyive nkhani icha uyitamangire ku koti ukaipange file na isa ayike mkaundula mene mucha ndi akayika mkaundula kuja zose zikaenda bwino mukapa saso fika sikuti kukhoti kuti makangosuwa ngati mukasumira munthu ujaso mukapa simasanga
Yes.
kuti aziwe kuti munthu utenga sumiridwa zikatha zimene zijazo ndi khoti lija limayikano tsiku loto yambepo yakhala kuti ku high court kumakhalaso zina ndi zina zochuluka kadi jesana nenedwe imato uthamwina chaka mina nanene mumchizungu nena kuti pena amafuna unena kuti anthu muyese ungati kukambirana fana kula mawabwino unena kuti apa tisauzana mawu
Simukanza koti loka.
kupita kukhoti tusagawana nkhuku kukhoti sagawana nkhuku ngati tingati kukambirana tikambirana kukhoti kuchozeka kuti zinthu zakanika
Yes.
apa pazakanika basi funa mukapita kukhoti zisakunamiza wina akasangalala wina akalira
akagwira.
sizingatheke nosigulira
Ausateka.
unosi kusangalala
Ausateka.
ndi mmodzi akawa wina akalosa ndiye mpofu pamakhaso ndondomeko zimenezo kuti kesi ije ikhale redi vuto limene makhalapo ndilonena kuti choyamba ngati ife maloya timatha kuyikapo zathu ndiyerekeze kuti muna ineyo munthu wadipeza ndikuona kuti mbali yake sili bwino akamaka akansumira basi kuyika masipokosi nditu kukapita kukoti yayi munthu wanga wadwala kuchedwesa ma-delaying tactics akauti loya yake ndishasha kwambiri amatha kupanga delay tactics paka zaka ziwiri zitatu 4 inu mukukuya koma ndikukadaulo kukaya sikuti timachita kwaphunzira kuti muzikapaka delay tactics koma palichita sunjira kuuzidwa
Nene atewa nene kuti akachoka kuskulu
amakaphunzira zina nzina koma tisatsatira apa vuto lalikulu kuti tikamapanga zimene zoweruza chama amationa koma akhangana kutilekerera chifukwa choti ndikuona ngati iwana ngati kuyika pasi nkunena kuti kuyambira siku lakuti tikuyamba mlandu
Yes.
izi mungupanga zimalize siku lakuti iwoso akabwera
Yes.
agwireso ntchito yawo ndikunena zimene zifukwa choti timazoona anthu ayika nkhani muwere 9 koloko mudikira mpaka 11 koloko kenako amuyamba nkhani ya half 11 ikamafika 12 koloko munthu wankulu akuyang'ana ochi mazula kuti akuyang'ana to nthawi ya lancha oti kumaneso masana 2 koloko kenako mungova kuti ayi mukabwalo masana watanganidwa nefunso lefe timazifunso kuti imese ntchito imene analembera ndi imeneyo sulamatangidwira njani sikuti sakakhale zina zochita alese pakhale zochita ndiye ndikuona ngati vuto lalikulu lagona kumeneko kuti samakhala ngati kuti nkhani ija ayitenga ngati yawo chifukwa choti munthu chakabwera kuzasuma ndikuona kuti iwo amene azipereka ma deadline ndi amene zino tipangisira kuti ndikuona ngati atati apange zimenezo ndikoza kuona kuti nkhani zija zikumayenda kumothamanga koma zikumakhala ngati akumatisiyira ifeyo so tineona kumasiyira mbali zonse ziwiri odandaula ndi odandaulidwa kuti tayendesani mukakhala lede mundiuza imeneyo ndi approach imene poyamba malamulo inali choncho kwa panopo kukhala ngati anthu akuti tetisinthe amene ali ngati judge kaya magistrate ndi amene azikhala azipereka ka timetable kuti apa pamene tikuyendera mu kesi iyi tinene chonchi kesi yazisankho ena ngati ndimene maita khoti kumale kuno inenga 5 years inasonyeza kuti abwalo akatafuna agwire ntchito
akafuna
amaigwira of course tinene chilo kana kapena nyasinde kuti anasiya zina zili zonse ndoti makesi awo ena anayima komabe zinaoneka kuti zikhoza kuteka kutanthauza kuti kesi jakhoza kuyikira malire kuti isazaduse apa tikhale chigamulo ndipo omwe wanaona kuti isatenge nthawi yayitali kuti amalawi ngati kuli kuvota avoteso ndikuona ngati mtima omwewo ndi mene angati kuti kesi isamachite kutenga nthawi yayitali ndiye ndikuona ngati kwambiri abwalo ayikepo dzanja azikhala tchero azikhala changu komanso asamangololera zina ndi ziti zonse zikuchitika ndikuona ngati tatero ndikuti dadero la malawi kuti milandu ikumachota bwino likhoza kuchepa
tilowe zimene makamba ndi zamaloya inu wovala masuti ngati mene ovalia bright imene ndinkhani imene nthawi zambiri amakhala anthu ake corporate clients ndiye naotero paja mulindi apart from ku school muliso ndi legal firm, isn't it?
Yes,
We'll talk about that one.
Right.
Koma ineyo ndinanu inu kokuzana ndi amalawi ambiri makoti makoti amidzi pano kumbewa kuno tili ndi koti linapa timati pamidima pamakhala pali anthu osakhala pang'ono pamene pacha komanso kuchamba kupenda upita kuchiradzulu chimodzimodzi upita kuti midzimu chimodzimodzi tingapange bwanji kuno kuti mamagistrate wakumeneko atsonisisa kuti milandu iyi yapita chifukwa kumene nokumachukanso crime ndi kumene kumidziko amene sitifuna asinde maganizo aja ndi amene aja the citizenry that I'm talking about that can be frustrated ndi amene aja mukuvomerezana nani kuti kumene kunzekwakuona simafuto kwambiri chimachitika kundi chani
choyamba tinena kuti judiciary chitipati ndi mbali imodzi ya boma
yes
izo zona koma tinene pa ground mukaenda ground mumaona makhoti ambiri ngati
ayi
pamene executive imanunkhira paliponsetu
paliponse kumene
olongakale ma MP paliponse maimuna alipo tinaligawa zikoli kuti ma MP alipo ndiye tinene chilungamo kuti judiciary ngakhale timanena kuti mbali imodzi ya boma pena pake komanso timakhala ngati timaiswayaso mwayankhula bwino ndikuti pamidipa apa wani koti ilitu linamangiro nasamunda
yes telo ling'ononso ngati
ndiye latsamunda ino ufulu tinautenga liti 1963
mpaka na koti
64 66
koti lochuka
utanozi pamene kunenokhala complex
yes ndikudapita an improvement by now
yeah makoti munangana amene akhalepo 4 or 5
pamenepa
from mmene unja makhala kuna magistrate awiri atatu ndipo akhalepo makoti amene ambiri kamene ndamangira kuchichire mucha timwazi tikapita kucholo timwazi tikapita ku Palombe timwazi kumulanje chimodzimodzi koma ndizo tukamba ma districts ndipo muli malo amene kumigowi kaya kuti papirimiti kaya pacha koseko kukhale muzaonesesa kuti anthu amene amazaza kuti munati mwafusi akuzani kuti mwina kuchokera kuchilazulu mwina kuchokera kuchoda sikuti ndi antauli mukama kona ayi ndiye ndizoona ndikunena kuti pamene pali vuto mpofuna kuti tiwonjezere ma magistrate komanso tiwonjezere nyumbazo zogamulizira milandu zikavutisisa tipange zimene ankapanga anzathu azungu kale ma 1300 1400 amatenga makhoti anthu oyimiraje ndi amayendera pachizungu ma security judges kumakaendera
khoti loyenda
kuno kwati mapanga apo ndi apo komanso kuyenda kwake kachira m'misika kwenda mene mazuri makhala milandu ndi anthu aja makonzeka ndiye ndikufunseni mudali mwa alemba ndekeze pa magistrate 100 nkwagawa kuti muzingoenda inuyo muzingoenda muona kuti milandu yambiri ita mizimu mwa anthu sazibwera ndiye mwina tinene kuti let's take justice to the people so that the people should come to justice for mwayankhula bwino munthu amene ali kumuziyo munthu amene ali malotenda amene angakhale frustrated kwa msayi wale so ichi
amene sifunanso asinte maganizo
ameneyo koma munthu ameneyo amene tifuna kuti asinte maganizo choyamba afuna asume ndiye ndiyekeze mwina kwachoda akwere uje malifti alipire ndalama akwere pa magistrate alipire so ndalama ya faili ndiye amuza kuti aende muzabwere siku lini
ndambwezi
agwereso ndikuti akuononga ndalama
ndi amene ndimudze kaya ndizichitika across the country
mwaoti ndapeza kuchoda konko indeso tiwonse tizikapeza pakoma koma akhale malo ozungulira kuti anthu asamaononge ndalama zambiri kufuna chilungamo ndikuona ngati titatero mwina zikhoza kuthandiza
atero ananu amakonzekera kakhala midzi chifukwa nkhani inansi pene kuoneka kuna kuti magistrate amene mmasukulumu kaya mmapatsa tiwa mbiri amakufuna tabakhala town muno ndikungounjikana malo amodzi amene ali pa urban koma tikunja kuno tili kumalingunde tili ndi kuchididi kusanje
zoona
ingafike bwanji kumalo ngati kumeneko
ndizoona profession yathu iyi tifomere pano at least until recently.
Can you speak in English? I want you to deliver it well in English.
Right.
Yes. Do you train them to actually face the hardship of being in the rural areas so that they can actually save the actual center of the people that want to be to respond, to be receptive to the mindset change without getting the frustration that is so rampant
right
now?
Yes. Actually, like I said at the beginning, the graduates we produce are fit for purpose, and that purpose includes delivering justice in very remote areas of this country. Akambapo atini paza ma magistrate wote azienda komaso makambapo za oche bangakale koma aliko kuma midziko ena.
Yes.
You see, in all those courts,
Yes.
our graduates go there to do cases.
Okay.
But let me admit, profession actually has been a bit elitist.
Yes.
Urban-based,
Elitist.
yes.
A little bit elitist, you're right.
Yes,
Yes.
quite elitist, until recently. But that has got...
So in other words, you don't prepare them for those kind of hardships. The
are
anticipation is for them to be white collar, kind of.
They are prepared. They have the capacity and competences to deal with any environment, to work in any environment, including the rural areas. But beyond the capacities and the competences we give them, they also have aspirations.
Oh, yes,
And most of those aspirations are urban-based.
Yes.
So, yes, they are fit even to work in those parts of the country, but most of them concentrate themselves in town because of whatever dreams they have at a personal level, or the
yes,
ambitions
yes,
they have.
yes.
But it's a trend that's changing by and by.
Okay.
That had something to do with the number of lawyers that we've had in this country and the number of lawyers that we are churning out from Chancellor College. Now, our output per year is around 60, 65. Previously, it used to be as low as 10 per year.
Yes, yes, yes.
And because we had very few lawyers, most of them were happy to concentrate themselves in urban areas. They had enough business in urban areas. But now we have the number of lawyers growing exponentially, and more lawyers are willing to take up, even to be magistrates themselves in rural areas. I think recently there is a program to decentralize magistrate courts, senior resident magistrate courts who are professionals from, for example, Chancellor College and other law schools outside the country. They are now going to be sitting at every district. We're going to have a professional magistrate at every district. I'm sure the plan in the future is to get those magistrates even deep down beyond the district level. So by and by, as more and more are being trained, as the market is getting flooded, the legal market is getting flooded, people will be willing to take up assignments even where they normally would have not wanted to do so. But in terms of capacity, when they leave college, they are fit to work in New York, as good as they are fit to work in my home, for example,
in
Mperembe, or name it.
Yes,
exactly.
in Poka side.
Yeah, Poka.
Because that's where justice must be speeded up.
Yeah.
So otherwise, we're
like
talking about mindset change here.
Yes.
This is another very important element that has got to be taken care of.
It is a huge element. As the Dean said, we need to take justice to the people.
Yes,
and when we take justice to the people through, for example, the assizes or the circuit magistrates going around, the judiciary has a huge capacity to change the mindset of the whole nation. Whatever the judiciary does or says can animate the behavior of everyone. It can animate the behavior of those in the executive branch of government. It can animate the behavior of those in the legislative branch of government. And that will only be effective if the judiciary is present everywhere, and it's demonstrating to the people what the law is, how it works, applying it and defining people's lives using those decisions. So the more the judiciary does that, the more judiciary is present even in rural areas, we can then expect some mindset change even at that level.
Maganizo jamata kumakana kubeneku muganiza kuti munasenga kuzokhala nkhani ya this movement. Andalama gawo kamakhala kotani. Chifamuna chenkutera, that's why amapanga ngati zanzanga zateu zimena iyama mbwera nokusegula a law firm in town aziyendera benzi yawo. Who wouldn't want to? Right? Koma amizi mudzachita treatment so that we should keep them there. Yes.
Izi ndiyankhula mosapsatira
yes.
vuto lalikulu kumaiko ndoti ma public officer servants athu ambiri amagwira ntchito mboma ndi anthu ambiri amene amagwira ntchito makampani aboma nyonoyo
njosiyana kwambiri
kuba njochepa
yes
izi tusifurula maloya okha ku polisi kucha
ndechifukwa kulakali aphunzitsi
aphunzitsi ndifika aphunzitsi abavutika soka khalamisa
exactly
ndiye tinene chilungamo tente anthu atiyambe kumalipira ndamalawa anzathu talipire bwino chifukwa choti munthu yotikhozokhala kuti Chancellor College taphunzitsa bwino ndipo menane nena athewa yankhola bwino kuti munthu uja akhozoka gwira chiro kuna kulikonse uyeyo akhozoka gwira tindamalago ambiri kumeneko akuzokhala jaji komanso it means akhoza kupita kumuzi kujangu kakhala nkhani ndiyo nakuti kodi munthu chakaweruka ali ndi nyumba takafikira
exactly
nyumba mo
cherekezali kunchena chena
ali ndi nyumba takafikira osati kuti nyumba ya town kwa malingana ndi class yako chena chenako ndinoti akhoza kwakhala ndikukapeza mpando ndikukhala folokona
inde
ngati kuli mwayi wa magetsi uliko nkumaonera kukabibawa kuona
ana akasamonera zosintha kweni kusana ndamene ali kuliro
ndikuona ngati titatha pamenepo chifukwa anthu ena mmamva kumana kuti yayi mahardship allowance amakhala kuti nkhani imene kuti
ndimeneyo
munthu akakhala akufinyika koma tikufuna kuti agwirebe ntchito ine ndikuona ngati zotheka chifukwa tikapanda kutero anayankhula bwino athewa kunena kuti ndikuti tikhala taphonyesesa chifukwa kuti tikawaphunzitsa kukwathu ku Chancellor College timaphunzitsa ana athu za ma-philosophers anthu akale amene amaganiza mwakuya kwambiri mwezi mwayo timati Roscoe Pound the theory yake timanena kuti social engineering kutanthauza kuti you use the law as a tool or an instrument of social engineering ngati mufuna kusintha anthu kaganizidwe kawo kachitidwe kawo
mukuika kanthu kena mumwe yes
koma sono lamulo limene lisilolemba fano malamulo iye chakuti funa malamulo ambiri abwino koma ndani apange apply malamulo kuti munthu akabwera mu khoti yake magistrate kuti mwapanga chakuti ambuye mwalakwa chakuti musakapangeso ndi mindset change ndakupasa na fine chindapusa musakapangeso ole ino mwayenjeza musewezako miyezi 3 ndikuti sozungulira khoti icha sachuka chimozimozi mindset yasinthirako kuti ukapanga chakuti zitivuta koma kuti zimenezo zitheke ndikuti pofuna kuti akhoti yache malamulo abwino apangidwa ndi parliament yache tipezeso anthu oti azagwirisa ntchito on the ground fuata yankhula bwino nayo kuti majority ya Amalawi samapanga access lawyer majority ya makhoti mulibe malawyer ndipo munayankhula bwino nayo kuti magistrate kunena kwa itwana kuti amene ndi makaso ajudicial
ndini acha minacha ndamela
ma magistrate court osatiso first grade second grade third grade ndi makaso inena minacha koma tende apase mwaona nda tipe kupita mizimu ma registered magistrate amene mapanga training akhale ngati kuti akuathandiza papa makhala milandu ina ikuluikulu koma tende sese kunena kuti akapita mizimu akathandiza anthu aja ayamba kusenda maganizo
chinanso chimene nditafunsafunsa zimaoneka kuno kuti akapitanso mizimu amene amaoneka kuno kuti akudya zinthu zambiri zimene ziperekedwa kuboma akuzo kuti zithandize the judiciary ka whatever then kuma high court ndi ku supreme court kwa anthu amasuti kale koma kuti chinthu chikafike you can go to magistrate yako kusanja kapeza palibe stationary alemba bwanji judgment munthu pamene palibe stationary palibe chine chonse tangapanga magetsi asi adulira mukiona bwanji kapena kunama
ndizoona if I may come in so like he said at the individual level my judicial officers alipidwe bwino komanso beyond incentivizing individual they should also have the public resources available for them to do their job. I think that's a basic minimum we should expect. Now let me make this indictment of our system.
All right.
I talked about my students Papanga produce and that the profession general has been elitist.
Yes.
The judiciary itself and the justice system is still hugely elitist.
Okay.
Precisely from the example you've given, the frequency or the attention that is given to the higher ranks of the court in terms of provision of resources. And when you look at where justice is churned out more on a daily basis,
these are the guys that are dealing with the grassroots.
Stark, huge difference, and no one can explain that. Justice must be blind. No, I think at the moment our justice system is not blind. It actually looks at who. It looks at the status of the people coming before it, and it acts accordingly. This is why you can still go to Zomba prison and find kuti kuliwina wake anaiwalidwa akuta napa muntu. Anaiwalidwa magistrate court itampanga committee kumene ko 10 years ago akungokalabe. Whereas ndingopeleka my example, I'm not a very prominent person, but if I were accused today of murder, chances are my case is going to run very fast. Of course, because I may have access to lawyers, maybe friends will come up to help me, even if I may not be able to pay them. But a young brother of mine who perhaps hasn't had the occasion and privilege that I have may not have the same favor from the same courts.
One that comes from
and until in the judiciary there is that mindset change that justice must be blind and it must not look at the face, we are going to continue to be blind to the realities of, for example, administering justice in Nsanje somewhere, where it's on Ngabo, or as you said, in Chena, Poka, everywhere else. So the system right now is elitist. The system right now is not administering justice blindly. It looks at who comes before it, and that defines a lot about what happens. Ngati kesi ya muntu wa prominent ichedwe ku court, it's because he has lawyers who can put in spanners.
Yes, as you have already said, deliberate throwing spanners. Yes.
Ngati kesi ya muntu wa kumudzi yende Nsanga, it's because he doesn't have a lawyer, and so a lot of his rights can be simply bulldozed.
Yeah.
That's why it can go that fast. So until the system begins to be sensitive to these differences, which entails mindset change in the judiciary. Well. And when we talk of mindset change in the judiciary, let's be frank, mindset change is not going to change at the institutional level. The institution doesn't have a mind of its own. It's the people working there. So mindset change starts individual.
Yes.
And in any case, it's in the mind.
Mindset change must start with the people, even in the judiciary. And maybe that's why we had to take the judicial system as part of an area that we're going to examine deeply in this program today, and I'm happy that I've got experts from the academia. Kani ndimeneyo timnatero kuti tizukute nditu ku kani ndimeneyo yokuzana ndi chilungamo mizimu chifukwa ngati anthu sangakane chilungamo izilukamba zosintha kaganizidwe zimuti amakhala absentima sanga timve ndipofunika ndithu kuti nombali imenenso tiunike bwinobwino mukhale pomwepo pamene tifuna timwere madzi kaye pang'ono tikabweranso tione kuti kodi bambo Teo ndi bambo Matise atuzaza mtundu wanji. Khala pomwepo. Tilandeniso ndipo ndakondwa kwambiri kuno kuti no muli pomwepo chonde musachoke chifukwa nkhani pano ilipo kwambiri, and I'm glad that you're still there because my next question now really goes to Bright. Bright, the judiciary. We are talking about the judicial system being a deterrent or at the same time being a catalyst. I'm interested now in seeing the judiciary being the catalyst of mindset change. What role can it play? What role can it play? In other words, let me say it slowly.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
The judiciary itself definitely must take an active
role in changing the mindset of our people.
I believe they can do something.
Definitely. Like I said at the beginning, the judiciary has a huge capacity and huge potential, and it's a huge resource for changing the mindset of our people.
Okay.
So perhaps the starting point is to acknowledge that a human being is a malleable animal. You can make anything out of a human being. You can make a serial criminal out of a human being. You can make a saint out of a human being. And there are all endless possibilities in between. Depends on what society wants its kind to become. Now, mindset obviously is an individual issue. I think from the Vice President's mindset public lecture, we got to learn some things from what psychologists say about mindset change. Now, if we take it that the mindset of an individual or individuals in society reflects the mindset of the society and eventually the mindset of a whole country, that's where now the judiciary as a third, well, one of the arms of the government, not a third necessarily because there's no ranking, is a very critical resource. How can the judiciary help or catalyze change of mindset?
Exactly.
And that's a critical question.
Yes.
The judiciary's resource lies in the sort of decisions it issues. And of course also the method by which it does so, the speed with which it acts, the effectiveness with which it discharges its responsibilities. But when it comes to decisions, it will be very important for the judiciary to always understand the context in which it is applying the law. Why does this law exist? What sort of problems is it there to resolve? What is the rationale behind this law? So when the judiciary applies the law, it must always appreciate the context, what ideals have the people of Malawi put in their laws that must be achieved, and in applying those laws, it must reflect those ideals and not just apply what the letter of the law is saying, but the decision must reflect application of the ideals. I'll give a very good example. Public officers. It's a mindset problem in Malawi. People in public service or in the civil service say Zaboma is. So, for example, the squandering of public resources is a mindset problem of Zaboma is. No one is responsible for them. No one will take you to task as long as you're properly politically covered. Recently, the judiciary has given us instances where it can change that thinking.
Okay.
It started with remarks about commissioners, commissioners are electoral commission. Nkhalidwe mene munaonesa pa chisango cha 2019 izi mkapitiriza kusogoloku wina akitazanena kuti alipire makosa litigation yeka.
That's very true.
People thought ndi nkhamba kama until recently in another case relating to zijazina chitika mafuna kuchosa kuthamangisa chief justice and justice of appeal.
That's right.
They acted supposedly in their official capacity, hiding behind official capacity, and with that mindset change of tikupanga za official Zaboma izi palibe angazatitani angazati satire pa ifetoka. Eventually we've had a judgment from the High Court that says mupereka ndrama from your pockets.
Although
Awutapanga appeal, of course they have that right, but eventually the Supreme Court, which is the one who started that sentiment in the elections case, is going to face that case. I can't say more about that. Komano, that's a very good signal of what the judiciary can do. Look, inoyo antu muli mboma atakwika ni menemo, you are stewards of the interests of the whole nation. The Constitution clearly says every decision made by those in government must take care of the interests of Malawians. Takwika ni mboma mu panga nizimene mwina kupanga, but the whole purpose of your existence there and the whole structure is to serve the interests of the people. Wina waga agamba kuchuluka mwanzeru menemo Zaboma is mindset. Judiciary yabwera panopa kutuza kuti oh, actually it's not Zaboma. We can hold you personally responsible. You will be responsible personally. The more the judiciary,
the judiciary is playing a deterrent role now. So there will be
it's telling people, telling people, look, change your mindset. If you think you can mess up because you want to be personally responsible, we can actually hold you personally responsible. And the more the judiciary does something like that, we are going to have a serious mindset change
in
not only in
civil
public service, but everywhere else. And this is what I meant by saying what the judiciary does can animate the conduct and behavior of everyone around.
Yes.
But at the same time, one must also therefore be careful about what else can the judiciary do that could actually, instead of catalyzing mindset change, it could actually entrench it.
Okay.
There are certain things. So there will be decisions which perhaps give someone the assurance that they will not be personally responsible. I think there is one aspect which I've always talked about in that regard, the position on what we call locus standi.
The locus standi, yes.
Kodi niyo mulindi poimira pati kuti mbwerese mlandu ku court. So for example, chakupwetekani njani kuti mbwere ku court noyo. Again, a mindset issue. Public resources are squandered. Those who are responsible to take care of the public resources are looking away, or they participate in squandering. Those resources are there for the Malawian.
Yes.
If a Malawian comes to court and says, hey, a judge, anthutu awa akuononga zija zene kuthandiza moyo wanga zija, basi makoto nena kuti iwe chakupweteka njani abaza iweyo za mthumba mwako
ezona
ukanaduza kuti akubera iwe mthumba mwako
ndeti kanamba
abaza
boma
asiye
mara tatu acho sa skulu tacho
that way the judiciary would be entrenching that wrong mindset change. But if we had more of this other decision we've just talked about, that would animate a lot of mindset change. Indeed.
Tagambaa nkhani ya kumene ndikukundwawa ndi kumusiku kumene ndithu upita kunsanje upita kunchenechena upita kuphoka ukapeza nokuti magistrate alibe cholembera chimene alemba bwanji judgment ndalama zimatuluka sizifika kumuzi chifukwa chani
tinene chonchi choyamba ndi nkhani ya mindset change yomwe kuti kodi ifeyo fanisanamizana anthu amene timasokoneza ndifeyo tanthu oti naphunzirako tili maudindo athu
timayiwala kuti nachoka kwina kwakumene kula anthu ambiri
makolo athu aliko
ali kumene kukonso
aze malume athu aliko mabwana amene ali ku judiciary ndi maogazena aboma chifukwa zinthu zinozofanana akamapaka budget yawo pachaka ine tikuzowa kuti iwo amafuna maofisi abwino ya condition sukuti asakhale nazo akhale nazo
akwere
sukuti asakwere kumaso taganizirane nawo kodi magistrate mwakaponya kutali nemukuti azikwera kabaza zona
wasukulu yake bwino
komanso ine nthawi nake ndinapita ku Mangochi I think mapita cha ku Mkopola mapita uko ndafika naona apolisi paja ndipo pali malata ndi chindu changa ine navima hapo ndati chochitika nchana ndana zolimene ndi court judge ati court la malata atu ngati kuti
Zimalata zoka
ngizijama panga kama auja construction kama panga ziji
zapanga ndi dream po imapanga maruo roads
ndi chidi nangoti ndilo ngati sinakhale moto or 10 seconds
kuteta
mukutentha umangochuja nthawi yotentha ndinazifusa ndati so bona magistrate akhale pamenepa anthu azibwera pamene khoti lake mene siti kuwaganizira ndizoona ndimene ndivuto lalikulu ufati sindikaganizira anthu amene wa magistrate wotenta amangire malamulo sikutena kuti mwamangire pose kamodzi koma ndingoperekeza period ya 5 years nthawi italitu mutangonena kuti timanga 444 ndi makhoti ang'ono 15 20
yes
555 25 chaka chiliyonse sikuti mukamanga chizako situkamba za midima yatsamuna
idakalipo mpana lero
utandozotitaika project or ya 10 years
yes
kuti pokuta 10 years radius serious meti akupangira maskulu kuti kubwera maskulu 250 pa radius iliyonse tipeze pakhale court tikati court iso labwino loti anthu akhoza kubwera kuzodandaula magistrate aine office yake magistrate auya ni maoffice awo macleric aine maoffice awo uya masunga za mafaini za ujeni za bero uja tikati bero timalipirako office yake tikati timazikeza mangida bwino ndikuona ngati anthu ajazi fukaso chita tudi chikhulupiriro anthu amenyana kumuzi oyambana kumuzi ndakupita kukhoti kuja kuona khoti lija la malata akuona zimene zikuchitika amene wazo angoti mwaziona zinthu zake zachibwana koma akaona kuti zinthu zija zikuone kuti nzadongoso anthu achaso amalimba mtima komanso amakhala ndi chikhulupiriro chonena kuti zinthu ziyenda ndiye ngakhale tikuyamikira kuti judiciary kwina ndi kwina yachita bwino koma ndikuona ngati kumusiku
fantasy mbiri makwamba za maskulu umusiku mangana zipatala tukiwala zankhani ya justice
kumusiku
anthu kola mangumenyana kumangupana
wane makhoti wapezeke
exactly
kwa makhoti oso akhale abwino ine ndikuona ngati boma lilati lasimikiza nda judiciary maamza atatu oseacha ngukhala pasi maamza atatu acha tente athandiza amalawi tikuona kuti skulu taisesa ndizina zitapezeka koma tikuona ngati pali vuto la makhoti atati akhale pasa executive a parliament ndi a judiciary akhoza panga solution ndalama zikhoza pezeka ife tili chikhulupiriro choti ndalama mayi zilimo zimankhala kuti koleza ayenda bwanji ma priorities
zikozokozo zabuma tendizidi
ndeti nene kuti kuganiza kumeneko ndeti katekani taganizire ameti ngati ana osati ana pansinku koma kuti ndi ana chifo chila ali mutali unati khoza ndikuona ngati chilungamo chikhoza kuyenda
Bright, let's talk about the corresponding to this about the judges. I think we've got about 36 judges against how many courtrooms again up there. Do they sit do they have time really for them to sit the courts? Is the time adequate enough for them to execute the justice as it is expected with the limited court space?
Well, yes and no. Yes and no, because number one, yes, I don't know. I don't have the exact figure of the number of judges we have right away. But definitely, for example, at Blantyre, the number of courtrooms is not enough for each judge.
Yes.
But the good thing is, the job of a judge is not always to sit in the courtroom.
No. Okay.
There is plenty work they do in their own office, what we call their chamber. So even though there are fewer courtrooms, I think fairly they're able to share use of those courtrooms because they are doing a lot of other work.
So whilst they're doing other work,
yes. And most of the times mukoti amakapezekamo akafuna kuti atolere umboni amve kuti kodi maloya kunena mfundo zotani. Those are the moments that they need the courtroom, and that's not the bulk of what judges do. The bulk of what they do is then going back, reading materials, reading files, writing judgments, sometimes conducting their own independent research. That's where most of the job happens. So yes, we don't have enough courtrooms, but I wouldn't rank that as a more serious problem.
Okay.
Not really.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
But maybe I was asking this because there's some backlog again. Just like Ms. Vitikira ku magistrate, you find other cases have also, been piling judgment without actually being written.
That
and people
has-
have waited.
Yes.
Why?
Like you said.
Yes.
Well, so many factors again. It's a multivariate sort of analysis one would have to carry out.
Because to me, I thought maybe it's because judges don't have courtrooms, but I know that there are so many judges that we have around.
Yes, courtrooms, but I am very sure that even the judges themselves will not cite courtroom space
That's the
as the
problem.
reason.
Okay.
We're talking about mindset change. I think out of the many factors, it's about work ethic as well.
Okay.
And I am not indicting judges here.
No.
Say they are all
And I'm
have
sorry, I've
poor
put you at
work
the tight
ethic.
corner. I know lawyers and your judges.
But I am sure among themselves, and
Okay.
even at individual level, there is room for them to reflect.
But why do they
on
take time to write judgments?
so many factors. It would range from how complex a case
the case
is,
Research,
the number of, the amount of research they have to do by themselves as well, in addition to what the parties have brought to the court. But in addition to that, the work ethic. Some people are happy to find the slightest excuse to run away from doing their job. So the smallest thing that arises during the day, the Dean talked about instances where you go to court, a case is scheduled at 9 o'clock. The magistrate walks in only at 11:30, and by some time after 12, or a few minutes after 12, they're already looking at the time they want to go for lunch, or they want to go pick up their child from school. After that, they say you will come back in the afternoon, only for you to hear akuti atanganidwa ndi zina zake. Ngati sanena za maliro, atanganidwa ndi zina zake. Apereka date lina tsiku lina. That's an attitude problem. It's about your attitude towards your work. In life, there will always be an excuse for not doing something. You can literally find an excuse for not doing something, especially in a country like Malawi, where life is generally a hardship. You can always find a reason for not doing what you're supposed to do. But then, that's exactly what will define us as a nation. That's what will define us as a people. What is it that we prioritize on? Is it these petty, small excuses? Do we lose sight of the bigger picture of what we're supposed to be doing to achieve the bigger picture, which when we achieve is what is going to change our other circumstances of life? That's the mindset change.
That's a
issue.
mindset change.
So
That's a
even
mindset.
judicial officers, judges of
whatever.
appeal,
Mindset
magistrates,
should change as well.
mindset should change.
Yeah.
We must really know what is important, what should be priority, and how to devote ourselves to what we do. Well, I'm Christian, so I think some of the audience are Christians as well, and they would identify with this. They say, whatever you do, do it as unto your God. The dedication must be as if you're doing it to the higher authority.
Yes, that's right.
So whether you're a judge, whether you're a lawyer, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a medical person, whatever you do, especially if it's public service, do it as unto a higher authority.
It sounds
and not
poetic.
this small patient, this small claimant or defendant that's before you that you may judge based on their status, economic status. Do it as unto a higher authority.
It sounds very poetic.
Yes, yes,
It sounds very poetic.
yes.
Pombotirira mkota. Sasa nabwere bright na yesu kuti abase wrap up also in English. Mutishani. Takamba zambiri apa. Ndipo tonse tikugwirizana kuti pofunika mindset change kumbali imene ya malamulo.
Ine ningonena kufusafuso kuti
Tifusane
ndifunso. Kodi ngati munthu sunaleve judgment pata 6 months or pata tawani ungakumbukireso zimene zinakabidwa mkhoti munthu ngati peti makanika zolemba zathu zomwe nguwa kodi tinalemba chani pamene
Kumati ndithu navota majaji akamene kuti we don't have court space.
imene isiyeno ine ndikuona ngati kuti majudgment azilembedwa pasanakhalise nthawi pasana alowe mphepo vakungodikirira ine kwa ine amene maganizira kungodusa 6 months kudusa 1 year muziona kuti game imene yagona fere mutu malowa zambiri amva zina ndi zina ndamakhala ngati kuti naijara yayiwalika kulena kwang'anika kulena
Yeah, Yes,
that's right.
You see, the quality of the judgment and therefore the quality of justice that the court metes out depends so much on how fresh the judicial mind is after hearing witnesses, after looking at the evidence. So like you said, actually it's not even a matter of convenience or preference. The law itself requires that judicial decisions must be made within a reasonable time after taking evidence. I mean, human memory fades.
It does.
So over time, the things that you could vividly remember if you wrote judgment immediately, they will fade away, and your judgment will be based on half the story as you appreciated it at the time of taking. So it's not even a matter of preference.
Yes.
It's a
It's
matter
a
of
must.
it's a must. It's a matter of duty.
Thanks very much. It's not a matter of preference, it's a must. Please, let's write judgments so that justice can be seen to be delivered. Remember, justice delayed, do we say so?
Yeah.
It's justice denied.
Justice
Yes.
delayed is justice denied. And I'm sure that your role is not to delay the justice. Your is to expedite it, to make sure that there is fairness in the judicial system. And that's why we chose this topic to be discussed today. And I'm very happy that I had these two brains from the academia. Thanks very much,
Thank you.
Dr.
Thank you.
Matisa, that you came.
Thank
Thanks
you
very
very
much, Bright Tail,
Thank
that
you.
you came.
Thank you
And I'm
so
sure
much.
that one of these days, when we call you again to come and contribute to the program, you make your time and do so.
Yeah.
So please, as for me, Wellington Kuntaja, I'm saying bye-bye. Ndipo ndikutokozani ena nonse amene munakhala nafe kumvera programu iyi zinaenda akataka wawiri awa amene anachokera ndithu ku Chanko Chancellor College timaterani akamanyedera ku Chanko kubwera kudzazukuta nkhani imeneyi komanso ina amakulowanso mkoti ndi chifukwa chake ndikupeza kuti amayankhulo ochokera pansi pa mtima. Mukhalenso pomwepo Mulungu amawa kuyendetsa kansi program ngati mwayi ine Wellington Kuntaja kuyimika mkono kuti tizaonananso.